Hello. This is the 24th issue of Catch of the Day, available on the Branch Talk YouTube channel. Once again, we're going to continue with Doug Mitchell's book, Holy Cow, Holy Dung, based on Numbers 19 and Ezekiel chapter 4. Starting near the top of page 19. Of necessity, any statements relative to a subject which is still out of sight in the unfolding of the scroll are made only in incidental terms of truth, as it is at the time seen or commonly understood. And if the common understanding of these incidental statements be wrong, the writer cannot be held responsible for that which he has borrowed from others or seen but very dimly, and therefore expressed very indefinitely. Answer Book 2, page 78. An example of the confusion which has existed from the early days of the Church on the Passover week matter is given in a note in the back of the Great Controversy. To wit, Note 9, page 447. The bishops of Rome began very early to demand obedience from all the churches. Of this, the dispute between the Eastern and the Western churches respecting Easter is a striking illustration. This dispute arose in the 2nd century, says Mosheim. The Christians of this century celebrated anniversary festivals in commemoration of the death and resurrection of Christ. The day which was observed as the anniversary of Christ's death was called the Paschal Day, or Passover. Like the Jews, Christians celebrated a sacred feast, at which they distributed a Paschal lamb in memory of the Holy Supper. The Christians of Asia Minor kept this feast on the 14th day of the first Jewish month, when the Jews celebrated their Passover, and when Christ is said to have eaten the Paschal lamb with his disciples. 3 days thereafter, a festival was observed in honor of the resurrection. The Western churches, on the other hand, celebrated the resurrection of Christ on Sunday following the Jewish Passover, and observed the Paschal feast on the night preceding Sunday, thus connecting the commemoration of Christ's death with that of his resurrection. Toward the conclusion of this, the 2nd century, Victor, Bishop of Rome, endeavored to force the Asiatic Christians, by the pretended authority of his laws and decrees, to follow the rule which was observed by the Western churches in this point. Accordingly, he wrote an imperious letter to the Asiatic prelates, commanding them to imitate the example of the Western Christians with respect to the time of celebrating the festival of Easter. The Asiatics answered this lordly requisition with great spirit and resolution that they would by no means depart in this manner from the custom handed down to them by their ancestors. Upon this, the thunder of excommunication began to roar. Victor, exasperated by this resolute answer of the Asiatic bishops, broke communion with them, pronounced them unworthy of the name of his brethren, and excluded them from all fellowship with the Church of Rome. Mosheim, Ecclesiastic History, Century 2, Part 2, Chapter 4, Paragraph 9, 11. This, says Bauer, was the first essay of papal usurpation. The Great Controversy, 1888, page 685, 686, brackets added. For a time, however, Victor's efforts availed little. No regard was paid to his letter, and the Asiatics continued to follow their ancient practice. But by enlisting the support of the imperial power, which the Church for so many centuries controlled, to serve her purposes, Rome finally conquered. The Council of Nicaea, out of the complaisance to Constantine the Great, ordered the solemnity of Easter to be kept everywhere on the same day, after the custom of Rome. Bauer's History of the Popes, Volume 1, page 18 and 19. This decree, backed by the authority of so great an emperor, was decisive. None but some scattered schismatics, now and then appearing, that durst oppose the resolution of that famous synod. Hevelin, History of the Sabbath, Part 2, Chapter 2, Section 4 and 5, Ibid. Therein we see that around 100 years after Christ returned to heaven, there were already divisions in the church regarding the timing of the events of the Passover week of Christ's Passion and the time for its memorial. One of the reasons for these divisions was because there was already a division among the Jews as to which day was the correct day to offer the wave sheaf, which typified Christ's resurrection. The text which enjoins the waving of the sheaf says, "And he shall wave the sheaf before the Lord, to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it." Leviticus 23:11. Check that out. Take care.